It smelled too quiet. That's the only way I can describe it. A farm like mine is supposed to hum with live goats bleating for breakfast, chickens clucking in the distance, the occasional snort from the pony at the gate. But when I stepped out of my pickup after a 2-day agriculture summit in D.C., the air was lifeless. No sound, no scent, just a sterile stillness and a faint whiff of bleach. I hurried toward the barn, gravel crunching beneath my boots, a pit growing in my stomach. That's when I saw it. The lock on the barn door cut clean through. A flimsy notice, duct taped to the frame, flapped in the breeze. The heading, Willow Creek Livability Board Final Notice of Removal. I didn't need to read the rest. I tore it down and rushed inside. Empty stalls. Bare feed buckets. No warmth. No animals. Then my wife stumbled from the house in slippers and a tear-streaked face. She didn't speak, just held up her phone with trembling hands. On the screen, an email thread from the HOA president, Beatrice Langston, and a report from a contractor named Frontier Habitat Solutions. According to them, our animals had been unauthorized. They were removed and euthanized for community health compliance. I dropped to my knees on the barn floor, the very spot where my daughter's rescue lamb, Daisy, had taken her first steps. We'd kept Daisy's stall as a little memorial. Now it was scorched and trampled. 48 hours. That's all it took. I left for one conference, and the HOA played God. What Beatrice didn't know, what none of those smug board members understood, was that I'm not just another farmer with a backyard hobby. I'm Daniel Rourke, director of the State Department of Agriculture. I write the rules they pretended to enforce. 3 weeks earlier, I'd attended their HOA meeting out of courtesy. Beatrice, in her lavender blazer and rhinestone glasses, stood at the podium declaring that the neighborhood needed to be elevated by eliminating rural nuisances. She meant my animals. I tried explaining. My property was zoned agricultural with state exemptions. I handed her the documentation. She didn't even glance at it. We voted, she said. This community has spoken. The vote passed 3-2. The deciding vote? Her husband, Walter Langston, who, as I later discovered, didn't even live in the neighborhood full-time. They were overreaching, and I told them so. Removing animals without authority could constitute theft and cruelty. Beatrice smirked and said, "Then sue us." I didn't sue. Not yet. Instead, I filed a formal review. But while I was away, they struck. Not through animal control. Not through state-certified vets. They hired a private outfit, unlicensed, shady. Every goat, chicken, and rescued animal we raised? Gone. The justification? A pest abatement order from 2004 repealed a decade ago. They didn't care. That night, my neighbor James Bell, a Vietnam vet who ran a greenhouse, came by with bourbon and rage. "They're coming after all of us," he said. He handed me a photo from his security cam. 2 men in plain clothes, loading my animals into an unmarked trailer. They weren't professionals. They were erasers. That night under the stars, my daughter clutched Daisy's old ribbon and asked, "Don't they know animals have feelings?" I didn't answer. I was already planning. The next morning, I sat at my desk, badge beside my coffee. I pulled the original 2004 pest order. It was clearly doctored. Wrong font. No seal. Fake. Then I looked into Frontier Habitat Solutions. No license. No vet on staff. Just a PO. Box and Gmail address. One of my deputies found the owner, Curtis Green, cited 3 times for illegal animal transport. Former wildlife relocator. Shut down for dumping raccoons in abandoned lots. This was criminal. That afternoon, I called the Attorney General's liaison. By sunset, we had a formal inquiry into the HOA, Beatrice, and Frontier. But I wasn't stopping at paperwork. Thursday night, I walked into the HOA meeting unannounced. Beatrice was mid-speech about modern fencing aesthetics when she saw me. I was flanked by a deputy and a state enforcement officer, carting binders, video stills, and legal statutes. I placed the forged pest order in front of her. "This is a felony," I said. "The contractor you hired is a criminal. Your actions were unlawful." She tried to argue. I silenced her with footage James' security video, showing masked men and unauthorized removals. Then I presented the euthanasia report, each animal listed with a method of execution and a forged authorization signed by Walter Langston. Gasps. Murmurs. A few claps. One board member walked out. Another buried his face in his hands. Beatrice called me a bully. I calmly responded, "State law supersedes HOA bylaws." And then I dropped the final bomb. "We're launching a rural community protection review." That night, everything changed. Within days, the state suspended the HOA's enforcement powers. Their accounts were frozen, their offices raided, shredded documents, fake ledgers, a burner phone. We found audio Beatrice laughing. "People think animals have rights. Not if they smell." She was done. News spread fast. State seizes HOA office amid euthanasia scandal. And then came the fire. At 2 a.m., my cameras caught two men setting my hay shed ablaze. One wore a maintenance badge under Walter's employment. The other wore a livability volunteer pin. They burned Daisy's memorial. This wasn't about policy anymore. It was war. We escalated. We invoked every law we could. We unearthed years of abuse, fabricated violations, bribes, harassment. A whistleblower came forward, Henry Briggs, with internal memos, showing that fines were funneled into personal expenses. Within weeks, the investigation became a criminal probe. Charges flew: document forgery, conspiracy, fraud, cruelty. Beatrice vanished to a spa retreat. But when she returned, reporters were waiting. By state order, we dissolved their enforcement arm entirely. Then, I hosted a community forum. Not in a hall. In my field, near the rebuilt pens. Kids played with goats. Chickens clucked. We formed a community agricultural co-op. No fines. No bans. Just support. And I bought the old HOA office at auction. We turned it into a supply depot and community center. Daisy's photo hung on the wall with the caption, "The spark that started a fire too big to stop." Walter tried to claim ignorance, but the evidence was stacked high. The final blow? Legislation. I testified. The Agricultural Zoning Protection Act passed statewide. HOAs were stripped of power to regulate livestock in agricultural zones. We threw a harvest celebration. No inspections. Just neighbors. My daughter led the final lantern walk, holding a flower for Daisy. She said, "Thanks for helping us be free." The next morning, I drank coffee on the porch, listening to the sounds of home again. Goats bleating. Chickens clucking. A baby goat skipping by with a red ribbon on his neck. She'd named him Justice. And somehow, I think he knew what that meant.